Now, joining me tonight, a couple of congressional members. Congressman Adam Smith of Washington, ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, and agrees with the president. And Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Mr. Schiff serves on the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and he thinks the president should have released the photo. Gentlemen, thanks for your time tonight. First to you, Congressman Schiff from California. Why do you think the president should have released the photos when obviously we know what happened when the Abu Ghraib photos were released and how much problem that caused?
Well, yeah, thank you. And I share your respect for the president. This was a very tough call. You can tell that from the fact that the outgoing defense secretary had one view and the incoming defense secretary had a different view. I came out on a different side of on this from the president for this reason. We killed Osama bin Laden, the man. But if there's a question about whether he's truly dead in the view of many in the rest of the world, the myth of bin Laden will live on. And I think that we took extra risks by not simply using a predator to take out that compound because we wanted proof that it was bin Laden, not just for us, but for the rest of the world. I'd like the rest of the world to see how bin Laden was living. Here he was posing as this austere person living in a cave, but in fact he's living in a mansion in Abbottabad, Pakistan. I'd like the world to see how he lived and also that he died. To put an end to this myth of bin Laden, someone who was beyond capture, beyond killing. I think that's an important national security objective. It's not, in my view, about having a trophy or anything demeaning like that, but rather make sure we put an end to the myth. And one last point, Ed. I wish the White House hadn't been so unequivocal on this because events may force their hand. If, for example, a couple months from now, Al-Qaeda releases another video, one they've had in the can of bin Laden giving a speech. Those aren't dated. It will once again give vent to this conspiracy theory he is still alive. And then when the position of having analysts go on the air and say, well, sure, from the position of the sun, we can tell this wasn't taken when it was supposed to be taken, or he makes no comments about recent events. So that's what I think advancing these photographs would accomplish.
Congressman Smith, Congressman Schiff said a lot there. Why do you disagree?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. There is no question that Osama bin Laden is dead. Man, myth, dead. No question, no doubt. I don't think any of us should be raising any questions, any doubts about that. I mean, we both, Adam and I, received briefs at different times on this. They tested this about 10 different ways, DNA, photographic analysis. He is dead. No question about it, no doubt. We should not allow there to be any doubt, photos or no photos. I mean, the conspiracy theorists, you could release whatever you want to release, they'll still, concoct those conspiracies.
But what about the national security interests of not releasing them? And
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that as well. I agree with what Mike Rogers said. I think at least those photos, you're not sure where it's going to go. But I think the really big point is here, we can have no daylight on the issue that bin Laden is dead. I mean, we have clear, conclusive evidence. Now, I think this is far from the most important debate at this point. I think the fact that we killed him is what we should be focused on, not whether or not we release the photos.
But
I agree with the president's decision.
We can't control conspiracies on the other side of the world, but we can control conspiracies here in America. Does the president not releasing these, render more questions than answers, in your opinion?
No. I mean, assuming we don't have more shows like this where we just talk about it for the sake of talking about it, no, I don't think it does, because the evidence has been presented overwhelmingly, as you yourself said in questioning Lindsey Graham. And for Lindsey Graham to come out and say, well, we have to be sure. We have had high-ranking members of the United States military who witnessed on film him being killed. We have the Navy SEALs who have said, they brought back the information, brought back the evidence. There is no doubt. There is no question. Let's not raise this into more of a debate than it deserves to be. He's dead. It's over and done with.
Congressman Schiff, what do you think the chances are that we're going to have to see these photos down the road to put away any other story that might crop up later on?
Well, I agree with the director of the CIA. I think that that's very possible, maybe even likely down the road. As I mentioned, if they do release further videos of bin Laden, it's only going to resurrect this. And the sooner we can nip this conspiracy theory in the bud, I think the better. Ultimately, it's hard to imagine these photos aren't going to be leaked, and I'd rather, frankly, that it was done purposefully rather than being leaked. And I'd rather it was done on our own terms rather than in response to al-Qaeda's action in propagating this myth that bin Laden is still alive.
All right, gentlemen, and stay with us because I've got another subject I want to bring forward to both of you tonight that just broke before we went on the air. I want to ask you about the Washington Post story saying that senior Republicans are conceding tonight that a deal is unlikely on a contentious plan to overhaul Medicare and offered to open budget talks tomorrow with the White House by focusing on areas where both parties can get agreement, such as cutting farm subsidies. So this means, as I view this as a liberal, this is a win for the Democrats that Medicare is going to be off the table. Congressman Smith, how do you view this news?
No, I think you're right. I think that is helpful. But let me tell you, the most important thing for progressives and Democrats to do is to more aggressively put the revenue side of this question on the table. Now, I'll admit, with our budget where it's at, there's no question we do have a spending problem in a lot of different places. But what hasn't been talked about enough, in the year 2000, when we had a surplus, revenue to the federal government represented 21% of the GDP.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, it's represented 15%.
Okay.
That's an over 30% drop in revenue. Why aren't we talking about that?
Well, this is a big victory for a lot of middle classers out there. I mean, Medicare is off the table. And then this means you're going to have to go into farm country. That's what they're saying, to get these farm subsidies. What about oil subsidies, Adam Schiff?
Well, you know, to me, the greatest contrast in terms of the budget put forth by the Republicans is the fact that they're unwilling to go after these tax subsidies of the richest industry making the biggest profits, but they will cut home heating oil assistance for the poor.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a much sharper contrast than that, but Ed, I think you're right. The Republicans have got to recognize now, if not soon, that their proposal to make Medicare into a voucher program is a non-starter. But it does tell us very graphically what this party is all about. And it is not about looking after seniors, particularly the most vulnerable among the seniors who are on Medicaid as well as Medicare.
Yeah, well, Republican leader Eric Cantor tonight saying that they've got to find common ground, so maybe they win a bridge on the budget, but they are not going to be going after Medicare and Medicaid. So it sounds to me like the people have spoken, and I keep putting this graph up on this program. 80% of the American people do not want Medicare and Medicaid changed. So I think this is a victory for the people and a victory for the Democrats. Congressman Adam Smith of Washington and Adam Schiff of California, great to have both of you with us tonight here on The Ed Show. Thanks so much.